Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Thunder Today YouTube channel. I am your host, Dylan Hibbard, and in today's video, we're going to be going over the Thunder's preseason Game 1 against the Charlotte Hornets. At the time of the recording this, it is starting to wrap up, and the Thunder are up by 20, so we're going to go ahead and start our post-game, start the show, and kind of dive into the side of that. We're going to talk about Aaron Wiggins showing out in his great performance in the preseason of Game 1. We're also go over some of the first-time players out there for the Thunder, guys like Nikola Topic. Chris Youngblood had a massive performance. We'll talk about that. And then at the end, we'll kind of do some fun overreactions about the preseason Game 1 because you always like to overreact about certain things when you get to see the team for a first time. But starting off, like we said, the Thunder's first preseason game was yesterday against the Charlotte Hornets, and they handled business pretty well. The Thunder didn't have any of their top 7 guys playing. Wiggins was their best guy that they played. They had Nikola Topic, Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, Ousmane Dieng, and Jay Will starting in this lineup. So none of the starters or Caruso or guys like that, Case and Wallace. So Wiggins was the main guy to go to, and this just really shows that the Thunder, they're going to win this game pretty steadily. The Hornets were going with their main guys. Obviously, they weren't playing all the game, and they weren't playing as hard, but you still had guys like LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller. You had Con Knipple out there, a rookie that could be a big part for them. Our Thunder bench and these rookies were still going out there, and they were still just dominating the floor, and it just really shows how I fully believe if the Thunder wanted to run their bench out as a starting unit, we could still beat quite a bit of NBA teams because of how good this Thunder team is. And I think it really starts with Aaron Wiggins, and we'll kind of talk about him in this next segment as Aaron Wiggins had 23.6, and I really think Aaron Wiggins is in prime spot to go for a sixth man of the year. I think you can obviously look at Caruso and Case and Wallace as another sixth man, but I think if the cards are played right, if we allow Aaron Wiggins to really come off as that six-man role and give, like, if he comes in for an Isaiah Hartenstein or something like that and you allow Chet to go to the 5, Wiggins can really play that six-man role well, and we've seen it so many times throughout the past couple of years. If you let him control and actually let him get his shot ups, he will prove that he can be a really good role player in this league. And not just that, I think if he had his own team out east like the Nets, I think he would be well averaging over 20-25 points a game. So for Aaron Wiggins, that's just a great step in preseason Game 1. Obviously, it is Game 1. It's just the start of the preseason, everybody getting going. But being able to see Aaron Wiggins go out there right away, drop 23 and 6, and it's just a really good sign for the Thunder that he's going to be somebody that we're going to rely on like we knew for this entire season. So I'm excited to see what we're going to get out of Aaron Wiggins, and especially after this, I think it's going to be a really good showing for Aaron Wiggins throughout this entire regular season. But now we'll kind of talk about some of the first-year players and rookies that the Thunder were throwing out there. Obviously, the big one, Nikola Topic, he started at the point guard position, like I said. He had 8 points, 5 assists, and 3 rebounds. Nothing crazy, but I don't think we're going to see or expect anything crazy out of him this early on. We just want to see some consistency on the passing, the dribbling, and all that, and I think that's what we saw. Obviously, the points weren't there, but when you have Aaron Wiggins going out there and then another guy we'll talk about here in a second, just really good stuff. We saw what Topic could kind of do in the Summer League, and now we're seeing it in the actual preseason stuff. 8, 5, and 3, that's a good start, and we're going to see how he improves on that in the next game and going into the actual regular season. And then the big one of the first players is Chris Youngblood, who dropped 20 points, the other 20-point-per-game scorer for the Thunder. And this one came kind of out of left field. We know Chris Youngblood had a really good summer league with the Thunder over the summer, and we weren't really sure what we were going to expect out of him. First preseason game, he goes out there, drops 20. So it kind of brings up the question of if he continues to show off and really improve, do the Thunder somehow find a way to incorporate him in some playing minutes in certain fourth quarter situations where maybe we're playing the Nets, the Trailblazers were up by a lot, and you want to get some of these guys minutes out there. I think Chris Youngblood can really earn his way into getting some. He really impressed me in this game. He was able to shoot the ball well, drive it in there, and I think that's something the Thunder are really going to want to look out for in a great impressive performance in Game 1 for Chris Youngblood. And then finally, the last rookie, Brooks Barnheiser, who was the second-round pick for the Thunder. And we saw a lot of him, a lot of Caruso-esque plays in the Summer League. Didn't have too big of a game in this one. Played over 20 minutes, just nothing crazy going on. But when you have your Wiggins, you had Chris Youngblood drop 20, and then a couple guys we'll talk about here in our next segment. He really didn't have to do anything that much. So great performance by, obviously, Chris Youngblood. We saw a lot of good stuff out of Topic. Barnheiser still kind of rolling into that role of him being that defensive monster that can kind of really score. Sorry about that, but kind of just what we saw from an instance like that. But we'll kind of transition into talking about some of the overreactions from this game. We always like to overreact in one-game scenarios or the first game of the season, and we'll just continue to do that right here. Some of the big things that I saw, one of the biggest things that we can kind of look forward to is Ousmane Dieng looked really good. He scored nearly 20. He was out there. He looked like a guy who, if you give him enough time, that he could really go out there and make a difference. And that's going to be interesting to see how the Thunder approach that, because now without Kenrich Williams, the Thunder are really missing that secondary big man / forward off the bench. Obviously, you have Wiggins for the forward off the bench, and you have Jay Will to be a backup center because you don't have Thomas Sorber. Ousmane Dieng at 6'10", very athletic. He could fit right into that role where the Thunder could roll him out and do a lot of things. So it's a big thing to see, Ousmane Dieng to go out there and really perform really well, almost have 20 points as well. So that's going to be a big thing for the Thunder to look out for. We're going to see if that continues on into more preseason games and see if he can continue to get some run that way. Also, Jay Will had a really good game as well, but we know what Jay Will is capable of. He's the hype man, but he can also go out there and put up some big numbers when he's needed to. He can shoot that ball. He has some really good post moves, and he almost scores 20 as well. So that's big for the Thunder. Those two, the guys that are not towards the end of the bench, but kind of in those spots where they're not getting playing time every single game, but when they're out there, they can make a big difference. So I think for the Thunder, it's going to be a thing to kind of continue to get those guys reps as we continue to go into this preseason and play different teams. I know we have the Nuggets quite a few times, so those are going to be the games where you might play those guys and see how they stack up against some of the Nuggets players that we'll inevitably see a lot throughout the season that will be competing with us for the title. And kind of the last overreaction to go towards is Isaiah Joe. Isaiah Joe was in the starting lineup and unfortunately didn't do that well. He shot 2 for 7 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3, and that's something we talked about throughout the offseason. Isaiah Joe getting more consistent with that three-point shooting. We know when he misses a few threes and it's a struggle for him to go out there, that he starts getting in his head and just feels like he's not shooting as well unless he goes out there and makes one of those first 2 or 3 threes. So a disappointing performance in Game 1. Obviously, we're not going to overreact too much, but something to kind of keep your eye on. Hopefully he can get it figured out. Maybe the next game he goes 5 for 6 from 3 and we can just kind of cancel this one out. But for Game 1, Isaiah Joe shoots 2 for 7 from the field. But other than that, a lot of great showings from the Thunder. Obviously, Aaron Wiggins, the big one. We had really great performances by Ousmane Dieng and Jay Will. Chris Youngblood really showed out. Tobic had a really solid game for his first actual NBA-type game. So a lot of good things for the Thunder looking forward, and we're just going to continue to build on that. Hopefully, in these next few preseason games, I'm sure we're going to see a little bit of the starters, Cason Wallace and Caruso, as we get closer. They just weren't wanting to play them in Game 1, and J-Dub didn't play this one, not because of rest, because of his wrist. They're still letting that heal up and not let him get too much into that. But that'll be it for me today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. That'll be it for me, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.